You're listening to the world's smartest podcast network.
Welcome to the first ever real episode, other than my strange trailer not too long ago, kind of a long time ago, because I'm a little bit slow. But welcome back. This is our first episode of Majoring in Everything. I'm your host, Andrea Jones-Rooy, and we are kicking off with our very first episode of the series with the person who maybe has majored in most things, and I think most seemingly unrelated things, though. Brian, when I bring you on, I'll have you explain how related those things are. Yes. Anyway, I get bored by a lot of preambles, so we're here to talk with my friend Brian Wecht. Brian, oh my God, am I saying your last name right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I was like, I've known you for years and I've never said your last name out loud. I don't think I have it written. Anyway, Brian is our first guest. When I first thought about this show, and I thought about basically wanting to talk to other people, flatter myself here, other people like me, in the sense that they do lots of things and are interested in lots of things, and maybe have made careers out of a variety of things that to the outsider don't seem so related, or maybe just aren't related. And Brian, you were the first person I thought of. I made a list, not to brag, and you were literally at the top of the list.
Wow.
And you so kindly agreed to be on the show. So thank you so much. And here is your formal welcome to the show. Round of applause.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. And for the first one, I've never been an inaugural. Actually, you know what? That's not true. I was the inaugural guest for another podcast. I was going to say I never have been, but I was the inaugural guest on the Cheap Show podcast. But I've never been an inaugural guest a second time. So it's a thrill to.
Yes, excellent. Yes, it's very hard to be the first a second time. So we're very pleased. And we thought about that too. I was like, we meaning my whole production team.
Yes, of course. All
those
of
knives behind me. Yeah, we're like, we need someone who's been a first guest, but only one time before. So that was actually what put you at the top of the list.
You want someone with experience, but they're not bored by it.
Exactly. So perfect. So thank you for joining the show. So for those who don't already know Brian, he is a musician, comedian, theoretical physicist, and about 10 million other things. Brian, I'm going to start. Well, tell me the other things. What have I missed? I feel like those are the three that come to mind, but surely we all contain multitudes. What else?
Is there anything else? I'm a husband and a father. We can go there.
I'm dead inside. It did not even occur to me to think of loved ones. Yes.
Well, you know what? I definitely.
He's a brother too.
I'm a brother. That's right. I am a puzzle constructor and solver. God, what else? Anything else? Sometimes I do my taxes.
I'm way behind on my taxes. Way behind.
Well, yeah, me too. No, I think that is most of it. I think that's a solid list. Yeah.
Okay. What puzzles are we working with? Crosswords?
Oh yeah. So I love. I'm a big crossword fan, and I like puzzles in the general sense that. Let's see. So the kind of puzzles I like are the kind of puzzles where you look at a bunch of information and you have to figure out what you're looking at and what to do with it. So the novelty in the puzzle is trying to figure out what the puzzle is even telling you. And the exemplar of this is what's called the MIT Mystery Hunt, which is an annual puzzle event on the MIT campus. I've been doing it for like 20 something years. And it is essentially, it's a group of wonderful nerds who won the previous contest, who then invent new types of puzzles for you to solve. So I have written a bunch of these in the early 2000s, a couple times, did a puzzle hunt in Manhattan called The Haystack with another puzzle friend of mine and college friend, best man at my wedding, guy named Jeff Bolus. So we ran a couple of these and I've kept up with it. So yeah.
That's way cooler than crosswords. I like crosswords, but those are way cooler. Running across Manhattan. What were you part of the MIT Red Balloon search?
No,
thing?
I don't know what.
Any idea what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm not sure I do either. I have no other information other than I was early on in my time in grad school. There was some like interactive hunt where they released these balloons. I can't remember. Okay, so what's that?
You know what? That does sound vaguely familiar now that you say it, but I couldn't tell you. And vaguely familiar is where I'm going to stop.
Yeah. All right. All our we have obviously a huge following here at our first ever episode. Yeah. So I'll trust the listeners to let us know what that thing was. Okay. So that's awesome.
Another thing I should say, I'm a podcaster like you.
Yeah.
Of
Yes.
course. Yes.
And in fact, you have, we can plug this more formally at the end, but you have your podcast sign behind you for those who are watching as opposed to listening.
There it is over there. Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast.
My podcast is called Late Night with Brian Wecht because my host is Leighton Gray. She is a game dev and artist, and we talk to interesting people, including you.
Yes.
So.
Well, I can't promise interesting, but it was lovely talking on the show. And you win the prize for, everyone should go check that out. I'll put a link to the episode if people are like, I want more of specifically these two people talking to each other and someone else who's awesome. You were the only person on a podcast who asked me, what was the phrase? You said something about, what was my emotional environment like in graduate school?
Oh, emotional reality, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah. Because most people, and I'm going to copy your style because we're going to get there, but most people just say, oh, you studied this. What do you work on? But you were like, were you okay? I think my answer was no. All right.
Which is usually the answer for grad school. No, I'm not okay.
This is
I'm
true.
sure, but I'm not okay. Yeah.
None of us are okay. All right. So, Brian, I want to start with the science side of things, because my understanding is chronologically, though you tell me, in terms of your public facing life, your science accomplishments came first. Did you grow up as a science person, or have I Wikipedia'd you wrong?
No, I pretty much grew up as a science person. I was very into, I would say it was, I was always interested in it. And I guess I had in the back of my mind, hey, I want to do science someday. The thing that like really locked it in for me, that I wanted to do physics in particular. So I grew up in Jersey, and New Jersey has a governor's school, and they have a governor's school in the sciences, which is a summer program, but they select, when I was doing it, I think it was 100 students from the state to come and be on a college campus for a month. And this is when, I think it was in between junior and senior year. Yeah, when I was 16, I guess. Maybe that's sophomore and junior. I can't remember. And
we'll get those dates and we'll put it in a timeline.
Yeah. It was between junior and senior because it was 92. And I took a class in 20th century physics where we learned about relativity and a little bit of quantum and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I'd always been interested in science and specifically math, like hard science stuff. But during that summer program, I was like, whoa, physics, awesome. And then really started to spark with that.
Okay. And how does one end up at a summer program? I feel like that didn't even occur to me when I was growing up.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where, like, if you were a high school student at the time, you knew these governor schools existed. And I was at a prep school, so they were very attuned to these things. And I think it was just one of those things that you were made aware of, because each school could nominate, I think they could nominate one person per program. You know what I mean? Okay. So of all the high school, like every high school could nominate one. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe it was like two or whatever, but one student to be in this thing. And then the governor's school would select among all those nominees, 100 people to come.
Okay.
Come do it. And then there might have been a placement test. I can't remember.
Very cool. I was going to say, it reminds me a little bit of, so I grew up in Maryland and I attended something around the same age. So summer after junior year kind of thing, but it was called Girls State. Maybe they have it for every state. Do you know what I'm talking about? This boys state, girls state.
No.
They're very gender binary back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And we got nominated, but there was no placement test. And I think my friend and I were the only ones who signed up. And basically you go to Annapolis and learn about state government. And all I learned was cool. I lost my election because I said like too many times. And I'd still say like too many times. So whoever's listening to this
seems
send me some feedback. Yeah.
Like, why would, whatever.
Anyway, so there was zero physics. I'll say that. Yeah. There was some kind of dance at the end that was really horrible. It was, anyway.
I did another thing, actually, New York specific, which was Columbia, I think still has this, the Science Honors Program, which was like a come in on the weekends and take classes in stuff. And so I took a class in atomic physics. And I took a class in some kind of, did some biology thing. And there was some math. Like you took a placement test and you could come in and do it on the weekends. So I would drive in from North Jersey. My dad would always drive me in, drop me off. I'd spend 2 or 3 hours in this little extra summer school, like weekend class, not summer school. This is during the academic year. And that was, I loved being on college campuses. Like, it just felt like home. You know what I mean? Like this was the place.
Were your parents insanely proud of you at the time? Was this, I mean, it seems unusual to me. I don't think I knew anyone in high school who was going to colleges regularly.
Honestly, maybe. I don't know.
Okay. I'll have them on next to be like, how proud are you of your...
They were, they were always very supportive, but I think I was just an academic kid,
Okay.
I was a very driven academically person, and they had to give me literally zero nudging to just work on math, so I just wanted to do it. So
are they math people or your sister?
No, my dad, well, sort of. Let me immediately retract that answer.
Okay.
My dad was an engineering major at Rutgers, but then, and I get, what year did he graduate? 58, something like that. But then my family had a retail business, a clothing store in North Jersey, and that his father started, and he immediately kind of went and got roped into doing that. So although he had a scientific bent, he was never able to use that kind of for anything scientific. And my mother did not have a science or math brain at all. And my sister, although she is brilliant, is not much of a science person either.
Okay. And for those listening, thank you for the review of your family. We'll do the extended family for the Patreon. I feel like I've really pushed your sister and your sibling status hard, but that is because Brian and I were recently contestants on the KinNexus game show where our siblings and we came on to compete to see who knew each other best. And I think you won, didn't you?
I definitely won.
Yeah. Okay.
My sister, we should say her name. Her name's Steph. Stephanie and I believe the term is crushed.
Yeah, I think it was. I knew we were in trouble when my brother signed on for the pre-game tech check. And I said, non-ironically, since when have you worn glasses? And he said, a long time. So it was not an auspicious start for our appearance. All right. So I want to get to Nexus and science communication stuff as well. But okay, so moving along in your life, you're super interested in science. You love it. You're gravitating towards physics.
Yep.
You've been since to all of the institutions that when people think of prestigious American academic institutions, they think of. Did you go straight to college, physics all the way, straight to grad school after that? What was your formal path?
So I did go straight to college from high school to Williams College. And I went in wanting to do physics philosophy, double major. It's a liberal arts college. Love physics. Philosophy I knew absolutely nothing about. Took one class, like an intro philosophy class. Thought, this is the greatest thing ever. I definitely want to do this. And then during the course of the next year, actually I had a very formative experience my freshman year. That an academic advisor was in the math department. And this guy, a huge presence on campus at the time, huge influence on my life. His name was Ed Berger. He's a math professor. And he was my advisor. And he was like, okay, so Brian, I see you're not taking any math classes. You sign up for your classes ahead of time, or at least tentatively sign up. And he was like, you're not taking any math. And I was like, well, I took multivariable calculus in high school. So I figured I'd just wait until, that's like a year of math that I don't have to take. I'll just take it next year. And he was like, what are you doing? No, you got to be taking math. And I will always remember this. He sits me, I was sitting in his office and he goes, all right, I'm going to ask you some questions. Sum n equals 1 to infinity, 1 over n. What's that equal to? And I'm like, well, that diverges. He's like, okay, yeah, you don't have to take any calculus. You're done. He's like, okay, this matrix. He writes down a 3x2 matrix. He goes, what's the determinant? And I'm like, well, there is no determinant. It's not square. He goes, yeah, okay, you don't have to take linear algebra. And then he asked me a few other questions. And he goes, okay, I think you can place out of all the 1 and 200 level math classes. You got that stuff. We're going to start you off in topology. And I was like, well, what? And so topology was a 300 level class, a junior level class. And it's all, theorem proof, which I had essentially no experience with, because you sort of get that, in like high school geometry, but not really at the advanced level that you'd see in a junior level class. And it was like a trial by fire thing. But then that quickly, so within the space of a year, that freshman year, I took topology and then abstract algebra, theory of groups, discrete groups, and stuff like that. And I was just in love with it. So by the end of my freshman year, although I really loved physics and philosophy, I loved math even more. And I was doing a lot of music, and it was like, you know what? Actually, kind of want to major in music instead. And I took a couple classes. And so I switched everything to, I say switched, I hadn't declared any major or anything like that. It was just freshman year. But I ended up doing a math music double major at Williams instead of physics philosophy. And then also took like, I don't know, it was like 3/4 of the required classes for a physics major along the way. So had I wanted to like die of exhaustion, I could have completed a physics major, but that did not seem like a smart route in terms of my physical or mental health.
Well, I feel like your story has the tones of like, you get to college, your first time away from home, you meet someone like influential crowd and end up on the wrong side of the tracks. Like you did that, but with a math professor.
That's exactly.
And then got sucked into the dark side via topology, the famous gateway drug of advanced mathematics.
Well, the other thing is, there was the math department at Williams then was, and still is, just amazing. Like it had all these really interesting, friendly people. It was just like, it was a fun place to be. It was a fun environment. Williams is in the middle of nowhere in the Berkshires. Like there's not a lot to do. People always hanging out. They had a math library. People would just hang out there and chat. It was just this immediate welcoming environment. And it was the kind of, the professors there, I was like, these are the coolest people I've ever seen. Like they're smart, they're fun, they're funny, they're friendly. It was just great.
Wow.
The physics department now is like that. When I was there, it was not quite as much fun as the math department. Now it's like I've been back a bunch, and they're just amazing. At the time, during my freshman year, I think they were still finding their voice a little bit, and it wasn't quite as, everyone was great, but it wasn't like the party atmosphere of the math department.
Famous Williams math students. I'm so glad you're saying all of this though, because one of my theories out there is that a lot of folks who don't spend a lot of time doing math, physics, etc., don't realize that it can be super fun. And of course, the intellectual exercises can be fun, but it's also socially fun to hang out with other people who are interested in this sort of thing. And I think we think of the solitary scientist, ivory tower and so forth. So I'm really glad. I'm glad for your sake that you had that community, but also that you shared that.
Yeah. And it was real. I'm remembering this now. I think it's, Williams is a liberal arts place, traditionally not a big math major place. And at some point, probably maybe 5-ish years before I got there, so let's say in the very early 90s, late 80s, they were like, we have no math majors. We need to change that. This is crazy. We have great people. Why don't we do this? And they made an overt effort to get people in. And I believe at some point, I can't even remember the statistics, but it was something like out of a class of 500, 100 people were majoring in math or double majoring in math and something else. And maybe I'm inflating that somewhat, but the number was like edging up towards 100, where it was a healthy percentage of the class. So these little outreach things really, really worked. And it was, I remember it was a pretty gender balanced environment. It wasn't just a bunch of dudes. They wanted people to be there, and they showed it through their actions. And although, the math didn't change, the math is the math. Yeah. It was the actions of the people that.
A very exciting time for math back then. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that absolutely the social environment made all the difference to me personally. And I was intellectually intrigued by the math, but in line with the theory of this podcast, I was interested in basically everything. And it's like, well, I tend to see myself going in any one of a number of routes, but math won because it was so fun.
Very cool. I feel like the United States and maybe the world could take a lesson from the Williams Math Department outreach program.
Oh, yeah.
Get people a little bit more excited. So, and by the way, I didn't know we had this in common. I went to Connecticut College, so liberal arts, et cetera, and was going to double major in linguistics and philosophy. And like you, ended up majoring in neither of the things that I came in to do. So maybe everyone set out to be a philosophy major.
Did you have any philosophy background in high school? Because I definitely didn't. It just sounded like a cool thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, right.
I was like, well, if I want to understand the world, that's where you start. And I never even made it to one class. So you made it further than I did.
I did 3. So I took Yeah, so I took an intro class and then like a more advanced class on both on analytic philosophy. And then my last class, which I believe was first semester, my sophomore year, was a Wittgenstein class, which was great. But at that point, the bloom had somewhat fallen off the rose in terms of that versus I don't want to be dismissive, but like real math and not just philosophy of math. Wittgenstein is great. But I was like, I just want to be doing the math part, not the philosophy part.
I just heard a lot of people slam their laptops shut. A huge philosophy following.
Which, by the way, and just to say this out loud, I think people like, and I won't name names here, Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of bag on philosophy in a very unnecessary and I think intellectually ridiculous way. I think, philosophy is important to do. I think it is worth defending as an academic discipline. And people who, of course, you don't have to study it, but to dismiss it, I think is totally unnecessary. Right. And in fact, just plain anti-intellectual.
Right. Well, and indeed, in keeping with the theme of this podcast, I mean, I'm open to there being fields, actual fields, not like sort of conspiracy theory fields out there that are less good or less valuable. Right. But I am not interested in those sorts of debates, I don't think. And mostly when you describe things like Williams outreach for the math department, I think about many, at least at NYU, many majors in the humanities that aren't growing as much as people might like, and things you could do to get more people into that. So definitely everything is cool. All right, great. So, okay. So, and I should say, I don't think I said at the very beginning, I'm assuming everybody knows who you are because as far as I can tell, Brian is super famous, but not to give away the punchline, but Brian is very well known for his music. So we're on a winding path through physics, and we're going to end up there in case people are like, I thought they said everything, and now it's all physics. What is this? So, okay. So do you go straight to grad school? So you got a PhD in theoretical physics.
Yes. So I did eventually, but
okay.
My route now gets a little twisty. So I end up really, I do the math and I love it. I do a thesis in college in music, which is my other major. So I read a big piece for jazz orchestra, basically big band. And I'm like, I want to go to grad school for music. I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I love being in academics. I knew I wanted to do more of it. And I was like, well, music seemed like my thing. I applied to a few musicology programs, kind of like music history and that sort of stuff. I applied to a few composition programs and I got into a bunch. By the way, I ended up taking, how many subject specific GREs did I take?
Oh gosh.
Maybe 4: math, music, physics. Maybe I even took something else. Did I? It's possible. Probably not. I definitely took at least 3. By the way, I completely bombed the physics one because again, I was not a physics major. So didn't do well on that. So I get into Duke for music composition, which is a very solid, but not super fancy music program.
Okay.
And
I have a lot of family. My boyfriend's whole family are Duke people. So they're excited, but I guess not about their music. All right. We'll talk about basketball another time. Yeah.
It's a great place. Like I really like it down there. And so the speaking of the social elements, so at the time, maybe about, I don't know, let's say 4 or 5 months before graduation, I start dating this girl. And then, you graduate from college and everything in your life like blows up for a bit because you're still trying to, what the hell is going on? And she is going to San Diego to be an economics grad student. And I am going to Duke to be a music grad student. And I suspected at some point that if I went to Duke and she went to San Diego, we were going to break up. And the thing that made me suspect that is she said, if you go to Duke and I go to San Diego, we're going to break up. And I was like, well, I really don't want to break up with this girl. So, and I was kind of, I don't think I admitted this to myself at the time. In retrospect, totally obvious. But at the time I was like, maybe I'm not so into music. What else can I do? Is there a way for me to get to San Diego? And so I kind of thinking one step ahead or several steps ahead, I was like, you know what? If I don't go to Duke, at least I can keep this relationship going for a little bit. Before the program even starts, halfway through the summer, I tell him I'm not going. and I look around for something to do, and I wind up teaching at a boarding school for a year, the Kent School in Kent, Connecticut. And some people may or may not know, at a private school, you don't need to be certified to teach. So private schools can hire anyone to be a teacher. This was a high school, like a boarding high school. And I'd been looking around at maybe high school teaching because I was interested in it, loved teaching. And they hired me because basically one of their teachers had quit at the last minute of the summer and they needed a replacement. And I put out some feelers. There were these networks, so like job placement site for teachers. And I ended up getting a job there. And so begins like the worst year of my life, where my girlfriend is in San Diego. I'm teaching at a boarding school in Connecticut.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know exactly, but that's further than Duke, right? I'm not quite, if you count the distance.
Well, I mean, it's probably about the same, but the point is it doesn't last for 6 years or whatever.
Fair.
So my plan is, okay, I'm going to teach at this boarding school. And I loved physics. Actually, my senior year in college, I took a bunch of quantum physics stuff because I was like, if I don't take quantum, it's kind of like, why did I take physics? And then I'm like, okay, well, this is actually the interesting stuff. It's not blocks on ramps, which is great, but whatever. It's like, the quantum stuff. It's amazing. So I was like, you know what? I really like that quantum mechanics stuff. I'm going to try to go to grad school for physics. And wouldn't you know it, UCSD, where my girlfriend was, happens to have a physics program.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
The things we do for love. Yes, indeed. That was weirdly a Jamie Lannister reference. I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones person, but I didn't mean that. Yeah.
Okay. So I teach at this school. I apply to, this is when I took the physics jury. I guess it wasn't before, it was then. Completely bomb it, do really, really poorly. Again, not a physics major. But I have good grades in math and good letters, and somehow miraculously get into San Diego for physics. And I quit this teaching job in high school and I moved to San Diego to start a grad program in physics, more or less because my girlfriend was there and I thought physics was a pretty decent reason. Of course, it goes without saying that 5 months or whatever after I moved to San Diego, the relationship completely implodes and I'm on my own in Southern California, stuck in a graduate program in physics, which is extremely difficult, especially for someone who wasn't a physics major. And then I'm like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing now? So yes, that's what got me to grad school.
Wow.
It was essentially pursuing this woman who, the relationship just kind of blew up. So
that's rough. that's my hot take on that.
It's one of those things where had things not gone in that direction, I would not be doing what I'm doing today, most likely. So I really can't be upset about it literally at all.
Right.
However, at the time it was pretty devastating.
Yeah. I won't go too far in the weeds on this, but I always felt insecure because I went to grad school mainly because like a professor mentioned it in passing, but mainly my then boyfriend was really into going to a PhD program. And so he and I applied to all the same places. Eventually I got into Michigan and he got into a master's program in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, he'll go there and then apply to PhD again, whatever. And so the reason I went to Michigan was it was close to Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing. So
we're
not together either. So
yeah, it's almost as if graduate students are people too and have our own reasons for doing things, which may have literally nothing to do with whatever field you're in.
Right. But I didn't know that your initial plan was graduate school in music. That's
yeah. That was
both surprising and the least surprising thing I've heard so far, I guess.
Well, I wanted to be I wanted to be a weird academic composer because I love what weird academic composers do. They do interesting stuff. It's a great way to have nobody ever hear what you write. So that's a downside. But it seems like a pretty great life if you can back it, like the other academic thing.
Right. So were you going through physics and this was a PhD program, right?
It was a PhD program and I knew I wanted theory. So generally in physics, you have to pick theory or experiment or computational. I knew I was not an experimentalist that much. If anything was clear to me, it was that. Hopeless in a lab, but I love math. So I knew I wanted to do theory. What kind of theory? I really didn't know. I like math. Okay. Lots of stuff in physics that involves math. My philosophy was show up at grad school and see what seems cool. So yeah, and so I was just kind of scouting around. I ended up I took a classical mechanics class, and the professor was this kind of like curmudgeonly, I don't want to say old because he's probably my age now, but older than myself, guy, the kind of guy where he was very off-putting to a number of people because he was so sarcastic and curmudgeonly, and he was like my favorite person. I was like, I feel at home here. This is the kind of person I like. And he was so smart and interesting, and he worked on fusion theory. So this guy's name was Pat Diamond, and he was just I just thought he was awesome.
Nice.
Just like brutally sarcastic, which is exactly the kind of person I like to hang out with.
So probably like seems really mean if you don't know that he's joking, like that kind of thing.
Well, yes, and I think sometimes was legitimately mean.
I see.
But,
okay.
But also to me was, honestly, to most people, everything I saw of him, he was very kind, and one of these guys that if you just go a little bit beneath the surface, a bit of a softie.
Okay.
He was always very, very kind to me and the other grad students, and was just kind of pushing people to be their best. He was not the like paper chase style, like, intimidating people, screaming at nothing like that. He was just really smart and expected a lot of his students. And so I was very excited by that. And basically just, again, going on personality, talking about outside factors, I was like, that's the guy I want to work with. And I started doing fusion theory with him. And it just wasn't like, I wasn't quite clicking with it. And in part, that's because a lot of plasma physics it's pretty much all classical physics. Not a lot of quantum physics going on. And so the stuff that I had loved before was like kind of not there. And then I took a particle physics class, and I was like, quantum field theory really class. Quantum field theory being the mathematical language of particle physics. And I was like, all right, here it is. This is cool. This is what I want to do. So after doing fusion theory for a year, I took the qualifiers and all this stuff. So after the first year, we had to take qualifiers. I took qualifiers, and I was the first in my class at that. So I kind of had, I could go to the theory advisors and essentially point to this and use it as a kind of a chip and be like, hey, look, I did really well on this.
It's like getting first in the NBA draft, or I don't know.
Yeah, kind of
something like that.
So I switched after a year to work with a string theorist and quantum field theorist named Ken Trilligator, who again was a guy that I was just like, this guy seems awesome, young guy, and was really doing interesting stuff and seemed like a fun guy to work with. So I asked him if he was looking for students, and he was. And so we started working together, and that is who ended up being my advisor in grad school.
And are you in touch with this person today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We're in regular touch. He's just like,
cool.
He's the greatest. He's such a sweetheart. And he's a brilliant, brilliant scientist. And I like him a lot. He's, I think, a genuinely amazing and wonderful person, and just a hugely formative influence on me. I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, he was so supportive. So at some point, all right, here's another twisty turn.
Yeah.
So I'm at San Diego, which has a very good, but not like top theoretical particle physics group, like excellent scientists, but it's not like, I don't know, Harvard or something. So I get the advice from some of the scientists there who basically say, look, you clearly are good at physics. If you want to really make a go of this and you want to, stay in academics, you should get out of here and go to a better place. And so I took that advice seriously. And I was like, okay, well, if I really like Ken, and I talked it over with him, and he was like, I don't want you to go, but that's not an unreasonable point. And so he was very supportive. He wrote me letters to transfer, or I basically reapplied other places. I applied to a bunch of so I'm now in my third year of grad school, by the way. Mm-hmm. Applied to a bunch of other institutions, got into a couple very good ones, I didn't get into Harvard or whatever, but I got into some, actually, I can't even totally remember where now. Got into some great places. And at this point, once I had to make that decision, I had another year of working with this guy. And I was like, I'm not going to do better than this amazing person that I'm working with. Like, I could transfer to a higher tier institution, but I have this incredible working relationship with a guy that I really, really like. Why would I jeopardize that? Like, that seems like a bad idea. And so I decided, even after going through my, I guess, third time applying to graduate schools, I had to take the GRE again. That time I did much better, but that's good because I just got through, a year or whatever of graduate level physics.
Yeah. All right. The test is picking something up. That's good.
Yeah. Right. So I decided to stay at UCSD and work with Ken, which is, again, I regret absolutely nothing. Best decision I could have made. I feel like had I gone to Harvard or whatever, I would have been completely overwhelmed by all the people who were physics majors and were, years ahead of me and crushing it. But at San Diego, I was able to basically have this guy all to myself. He didn't have any other students at the time. And he was so patient and kind that it was just the best environment for me personally.
That's huge. I mean, I think one thing I didn't know at all going into a PhD program myself was how important your advisor is. And you need someone to supervise your work and whatever, but it's everything. If you don't, and I've seen it go both ways, an amazing advisor, an amazing experience. I mean, it's still very challenging, or an advisor who's not very helpful can really derail someone. And I was thinking, switching partway through, you've lost that much time to have a rapport with whoever at the new place.
Totally.
And all that.
Yeah. And it's not even like good advisor, bad advisor. It's good fit, bad fit.
Right.
Or you start working on a problem that doesn't go anywhere. There's just a million ways things can go right or wrong. And actually, my first year working with Ken, he gave me, he did a very advisorly thing, which is he pointed to a recent paper and he said, "This looks interesting. Explain this to me." And it turned out to be incredibly challenging. It was something called string field theory, which I don't even want to explain, but was a notoriously difficult thing, even in string theory. And I had no idea what was going on. I bashed my head against the wall for, a year trying to get some idea for a project on this, because he didn't work on this. He was just like, explain this to me and see where it goes. And I had no luck at all on this. And so after a year of this, I was like, okay, look, Ken, I hate to say this, but this is really not going anywhere. Can we work on something else? And he was like, yep, sounds great. And we switched and worked on something else. But it was, so I even started out with this great guy with a problem that was not a good fit for me. And in fact, was not a good fit for lots of people because, again, notoriously difficult subfield of string theory.
How is that subfield doing now? Are they hanging in there?
There are still people around the world doing it. They actually made a significant amount of progress shortly after I stopped trying to worry about it.
Okay.
But it's the kind of thing, it's very niche now. I'd say there's a small-ish community of scientists who work on it, but they're doing interesting stuff. And it's the kind of thing where it has the potential to be really, really big if they can crack some hard problems. So it's not like it went away. There's still people working on it, but also, how things in academics go, it takes a long time for things to totally fade away. There's probably always going to be at least one person doing some weird thing somewhere.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of thing where it's much more than that. They're like very, they're great people all over the world working on this still.
String field theory.
All
right. Yes. If this were a physics podcast, we'd get into it, but we're gonna move on.
It would take a long time to explain.
Yeah. What role is music and or comedy playing in your life during this time?
So I am in San Diego while I'm a grad student. I joined a band, like a friend of a friend is like, hey, do you want to play with us? And I didn't have a group of people to play with. And so I, play sax and keyboards. And so I just play with a bunch of, kind of buds in a friend band, and it became a social group too. Because one thing, I don't know if you found this, for me, an absolutely crucial thing was having friends that weren't in grad school. And
Yes. 100%.
having people to go hang out with who were, look, I loved hanging out with the grad students. Having friends outside grad school was crucial, and that was my band. And then one day, I'm hanging, but roughly in my fourth or so year of grad school, two things happened. One is I came back to New York, New Jersey to hang out with family and some friends. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was taking classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade at UCB and was doing a lot of improv stuff and was just in love with it. And I was like, God, man, this guy's really funny. This sounds really cool. I'm going to take an improv class. And so I took a class with San Diego Theater Sports and was just like, this is great. Improv's fun. And they're always looking for musicians. So they kind of immediately, from signing up for the first class, they were like, you're a musician? Great. Show up at the show and bring a keyboard, So I started just playing, accompanying improv shows. So I got to watch a lot of that. And the other thing that happened is I met a friend of the woman that I had moved to San Diego with/for, who was an econ grad student, now an econ professor. And we just kind of ran into each other in the bookstore, campus bookstore one day. And he was like, oh, dude, you play horn, right? It's like, yeah. He goes, well, my band has a gig this weekend and we need a horn player. Do you want to do it? Sure. Why not? And it turns out he thought I played trumpet, which I definitely don't.
Well, I was like, I didn't know you called saxophones horns, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You call them horn, there's a lot of things that could be a horn.
Yeah.
It's a pretty malleable concept. And so then I started playing with this other band, which was like an actual real band of musicians that, no pros, but people who were very, very good. And that became my primary social group for the rest of my time in San Diego for the last several years there. And we'd play gigs most weekends. And there was this whole group. It's like I kind of just got dropped into the middle of this social scene that already existed that had like 20 or 30 people in it. And just they immediately were like, yeah, come hang out. And some of them were academics, some of them were not. And it was just a good group of people who have remained some of my closest friends to this day. So those were the big things. I started kind of a new music project. The band was called Agave, and it was kind of like a jammy sort of bar band thing.
Agave is a good name for a jammy bar band. I like
right?
that. Yeah, that's good.
And then started improv at the same time.
And so did you get any grief from the PhD program, or they don't care what you do in your free time?
No, if you're writing paper, they didn't care. And I'm not in a lab. I mean, this is the other thing, is I was a theorist, so I didn't have to be in a lab. And there were I knew some grad students in labs who were like basically punching the clock. You get in at 9 and you leave at 7 or whatever. In theory, no one cared as long as you were getting the stuff done. And it was, I would bring papers to the beach and read them on the beach in San Diego. It didn't matter as long as I was working, which I was.
Yes.
So, and like Ken, my advisor, bought when we had a CD to sell. He bought the CD. He was a supportive guy. So I did not get too much blowback. If I'm rambling on too much, by the way.
No, not at all. Is it okay? So then you continue with an academic career, though. So the music is. Am I right that the music is very much kind of like a let off steam social life role?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you go formally? So you make your way back to the East Coast for academic jobs, correct?
That's right. So I get, Ken and I have a paper in, I guess what year? I don't know, some year in grad school. I think my second to last year, which is, ends up being, a big discovery. And in supersymmetry, and I start getting invited to give talks, and it's like, okay, I have a result, a result my name is attached to that I can point to and people can point to.
Are you able to say what the discovery is for people like me who have no idea how to think about most of
you know what? I'll just tell you what it's called, and I won't really belabor it. It's called a maximization.
Yes.
And that's what it is. You can
finally. Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's a kind of a technical result in supersymmetry. But the thing that was important was it was it was the thing that it was a very simple way of calculating a thing that's hard to calculate. So it gave people, it wasn't just like, hey, we found out something interesting. It's like, here is a tool that is easy to use, and the results are interesting.
Awesome.
So that's why it was that's why it was a kind of a big deal, is because people were like, oh, this is actually, we can just do this and we get to figure out, to use what it is, the exact scaling dimensions of a bunch of operators and super conformal field theories, whatever. Doesn't matter what that means. But it's a toy chest for people to play in.
Right.
So I go on the postdoc market, and I'm lucky I have a big result, so I get a bunch of offers and end up going to MIT, which I was very excited about, not least of which because of the mystery hunt that I've been doing there for years at this point. I'm like, oh, that's a place I love because of puzzles. And it seemed like a really fun place to be a postdoc. And so, yeah, so now I'm in the postdoc world at MIT in the Center for Theoretical Physics.
And for folks who don't know every step of the way in the academic life cycle, a postdoc is, what would you say, Brian? I always say it's like a professor who's not paid very much, who just got their PhD, but maybe there's something more formal in physics.
In physics, well, so in a lot of places, I think in math especially, you're teaching, and in physics, you're like never teaching.
Okay.
So I did teach at MIT, but I had to like really go after it and ask to do it. The way I describe it in theoretical physics is it is a fixed term research position you get as a stepping stone to being to a faculty job. So it's like a 2 or 3 year thing. You do it. There is basically no chance they'll make you a permanent, faculty member there. And then, at some point, maybe you get a faculty job or not.
Right. I knew someone who got a 4-year postdoc, which was unheard of for me.
So I know. So the next place I went, which was the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, they have a 5-year postdoc if they think you're particularly awesome.
Did you have one of those? Did they think you were particularly awesome?
They did not. But still, it's like you can't complain. It's not upsetting at all.
Right.
I had a 3-year job there, which was amazing. I mean, that place is just incredible. It's where Einstein was. All these people came through. Oppenheimer, von Neumann, Witten is there now. Cyber, like some real luminaries. Freeman Dyson was there when I was there. It's just like these incredible superstars of theoretical physics.
I mean, yeah, I'm just sitting here being like, why am I messing around in Manhattan? I got to get over to Jersey. Not that they'd be like, please get off our campus. We don't know you. Okay. So how far did you go in academia before you?
Before I left. I did, I was a postdoc for 8 years total, and then a faculty member for 3 years. So just to fill in the last 2 years, I did 1 year of a postdoc at Michigan, which we share together, and then 1 year at Harvard. And so I got that Harvard offer when I was at Michigan, which is the same year I got my offer of a faculty job at Queen Mary University of London. So I I was basically in my 7th year of being a postdoc, and almost, by the way, walked away after 6 years, because that was what people, like the conventional wisdom was, if you don't get it after 6 years, if you don't get a faculty job, it's probably not going to happen. So maybe just cut bait and try something else. I stupidly hung on because I was like, I don't know what else I'm going to do, except that next year was completely crucial to, getting to the next step, which was the faculty job. And so then I was a faculty member for 3 years in England. So total, like from the beginning of grad school, 6 years of grad school, 8 years of postdoc, 3 years of faculty, and then I quit academics.
Yes. I think you have me beat. What do I have? I have like 8 years grad school, 3 years postdoc, only 2 years faculty. Although now I've been dragged back in, but we'll talk about that another time, sort of, but not really. Okay. Throughout all of this, people, you told me normally people, if it doesn't happen for you after 6 years of postdocs, you get out, you kept going, you move all the way to London. One of the other things that's emerging from this is that your story sounds very consistent with the one thing that always bugged me about academia, which was you don't really get a say over where you live. Like you were shuttling all over the place.
Yeah, all over
for that. So were you full speed ahead? Physics, theoretical physics faculty job. That's all on my radar. That's it.
I mean, I had this, when you're a postdoc, there's always like, well, what if this doesn't happen faculty wise? But I was very much of the attitude, like, I'll worry about that if I have to.
Okay.
So basically full speed ahead, except, I'm doing music and comedy and stuff. And so while I'm a postdoc in Princeton, I kept doing comedy in Boston. I was the music director of the Improv Asylum up there, which is where I met my now wife, Rachel, because she was a main stage actor there. I keep doing it in New York, and there I meet a bunch of people, including this guy named Dan, and he and I started a comedy band together where I dress up like a ninja, and the band is Ninja Sex Party. And it's just like a silly 2-person thing that we do in small clubs. And it's really fun, but it's just like no one cares about it. So I'm doing this constantly on the side. I remember having days where I would give a talk in Princeton and then get on the train and go into New York and put on the ninja costume. And, those are my favorite days.
What did you like about those days?
It's just, it's being busy, which is always fun as long as you're not too busy.
Right.
But it just felt like, everything had a purpose. I'm like, okay, I'm giving a research talk this day. All right. Then I got to leave, and then I got to go getting into the city to be part of the comedy scene in New York. Like, and you know how it is. Like, if you do anything comedy in New York, there's a small part of you, if not a big part, that's like, I'm doing comedy in New York. Oh my God. Even if it's at like the most rinky-dink open mic or whatever, you're doing comedy in New York.
Yeah. It's a basement where we will all definitely die if we don't leave very soon. Yeah.
So I'm all in, but we keep this band like starts to be really fun, and it seems to be clicking with certain people, and it seems like there's something there. It wasn't like kind of a throwaway thing. And so even after I moved to London, we keep it going, which I was always terrified as an academic that it's like we're making sex jokes, it's not.
I mean, the word sex is in the title of the band. It's pretty obvious.
It's right there. And it's nothing like pornographic, but it's a PG-13, like it acknowledges the existence of sex, which is more than theoretical physics does.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know what happens at theoretical physics research seminars, but it's not a common topic.
But I was actually always terrified. So, and I interviewed for faculty jobs here and there, and sometimes it would come up. And I remember giving a seminar at Rutgers once, and this kid comes in the room and he's like, I just want to say I really like NSP. I was like, dude, like time and place,
read the room, man.
So, like people knew about it, but it wasn't a big deal. And I was always terrified of getting a faculty job, and having that become a problem where people pointed to it, because it is not crazy to think that there's some weird morality clause or something, at least in the US, of, all it takes is one student to raise a stink about, my professor is this, weird sex monster. And is that a problem? Potentially is all I could say. And I was like, all I can do is like do the stuff that I think is interesting. I think this band is fun and funny and interesting. We're not doing anything actually objectionable, but I could see how someone who is particularly, let me just say, I don't know, it could just rub someone the wrong way.
Totally.
I think just because of personal preference, but if there's someone who is very conservative or something, probably they would look at the kind of stuff we do and say, that's not okay. So I was always terrified of, if I do get my dream faculty job, all I need is one person to like blow it forever.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be a legitimate issue, as you said, right? It can just be that, a student is uncomfortable, or something about the background is, it doesn't have to be a serious, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, I guess is my point.
I didn't think I was, but I think a college might have a reasonable point of view to say, you make us look like jerks, because you're the guy dressing up in a ninja costume telling sex jokes. We can't have that on our faculty. I don't think that's do I agree with that? No, but I don't think that's a crazy thing for a college to say. I think they would be well within their rights saying, look, we don't want you at our institution because you're doing this weird immature stuff.
Right. Well, I find myself wondering when in time this is, but I also, on the other hand, feel like, so right now we're all nervous about what can happen on college campuses and can't.
This
and we're all
before that.
But this was way before that. But I can imagine the 90s or the 80s, this still being on your mind.
Yeah. I mean, this is 10 years ago, roughly. Yeah. So it's not like, the current discussions that are going on were probably present in some form, but not in the way they are right now. I was more just worried that I would get a conservative, like a conservative Christian or something who just thought what I was doing was unacceptable, who would complain and then blah, blah, blah. But I got a job in the UK where people are generally much more chill about this stuff. And the students knew about it. Some of the other faculty knew about it. Nobody cared. It was all good. Probably they could have fired me too, but never caused a problem. And my attitude was, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And also, honestly, if it becomes a problem, it's probably amazing PR for the band.
Right.
So,
like this band has a theoretical physicist who got fired from his, blah, 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 blah. Like the headlines write themselves, basically. Yeah. I also, Brian, I promised you'd be done by now. Are you okay on time?
I'm all good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
If you need to be done, I
don't have anywhere to be. This is awesome. I really appreciate this. So personal aside, I'm late to literally everything in my life because I always think things will take way less time than they take. And as we're talking about this, it's awesome. I just feel bad keeping you past what I promised.
No, it's all good.
Okay. So you're in London. So are you playing in the band at this time? Are you traveling back to New York? How is the band continuing if you're in London?
Yeah, so we're writing stuff remotely. And my partner now has moved to, my partner in the band, not my wife, has moved to LA. And because our manager was like, look, if you really want to make a go of it, you got to go to LA, which he did. And so I'm flying out to LA a couple times a year to make music videos. And we're not playing shows, but we keep the music videos up.
And you have a manager and stuff at this point. I mean, that alone is a legitimacy that does not many artists that I know or that I personally have, right? That's the next level.
For sure. And so we just keep it up. I'm an academic schedule. I can adjust things and I don't need to be out there forever. I'll fly out for a week and it's a 10-hour flight, but it's not terrible. It's like whatever. So I'm flying out every, 4 months, something like that. We bank stuff up. We do shoot dates. We keep the stuff up. But the thing that really changed everything was my partner, Dan, joined a very popular video gaming channel. And then suddenly our band went from like we're doing okay. People know it sort of, but it's really not really, it's not making any money or anything. It's just like there to, oh my God, he's on this channel with like over 1 million subscribers and they're getting popular. And suddenly people started checking us out. And then there was this hockey stick point where, and this is June-ish to summer. I don't know if it's June. I think it's June 2013 when it's like, oh, okay, this actually might be a career now. This went from, hey, this is a fun thing I do on the side to maybe we can make money at this. And so then things got a lot more complicated because, as you said, we've been bouncing around. I've promised my wife, Rachel, this is our last move. My job is permanent in London.
Faculty jobs, famously permanent jobs. That's it.
Famously permanent job. It's not tenured because the UK doesn't have tenure, but it is a permanent job. It's actually much easier in the UK system. If you have a permanent, like a permanent position, you take a little, you kind of tick a couple boxes and you're permanent. There's no tenure process. You're just in and that's it.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Okay.
In some sense, maybe a little less secure than a tenured job, but not appreciably. Anyway, so I'm like, we go to London. That's it. We're there. We have a baby because we're in London forever. And then it's like, well, are we? Maybe they got this band's doing well. Like, maybe it's like seems fun. Should I do it? And the other guy, the guy who runs the gaming channel, this lovely guy named Aaron. We create a band with him and me and Dan too, and we're doing like hip hop songs about video games. And at some point he calls me, he's like, okay, look, we need someone to run our social media. If you want to move here, I can give you a job, like salary, health insurance, all that stuff, doing that. And then I was like, well, yes. So, and
was it really that easy?
No, it was months of agony.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, holy heavens, that's not what I expected. Yeah. Okay.
It was like it was a whole thing because I was like, fuck, what do I do? I forgot to ask if I could swear on this.
That's fine.
But it was, it was this whole, like, do I abandon these years and years and years, like 20-ish years of academics for the ninja costume and the YouTube career? And I talked with Rachel, and she basically was like, I trust you. If you don't think this is a bad idea, I don't think this is a bad idea. We had a newborn at this point. Like she's
yeah, she's right there. Yeah,
she's in the background somewhere. She might come flying through that door at any moment. But so after months of agony, I mean, this was really hard. Like, do you give it up? I just decided, I was like, you know what? If I don't do this, I will actually regret this forever. And there are relatively few things I can say that statement about, but this is definitely one of them. Like, I have a chance to, this feels so self-serving to say it, but I'll just say it, a chance to be a rock star. Should I jump at it? I don't know if it's going to work. Let me try it. And so I try it. Now, my tactical mistake was, and I had to deal with myself. I always want to be straightforward with people. I was like, the moment I make this decision, I will tell the university, because I don't want to keep anybody. I don't want to inconvenience anyone. These guys, they were nice enough to like hire me and stuff. So I make my decision, and the next day I tell them, I was like, guys, I have this job offer and I'm going to take it.
It's not what you think. Yeah.
What I didn't realize is the day I told them was April 1st.
Oh,
and everybody was like, yeah, right.
Wow.
Like, no, I'm actually serious about this. Sure you are. Yeah, sure, Brian.
Yeah. Do you want me to email you tomorrow? I don't know what to, and remind you. Yeah. Wow.
And well, the other thing that was a little odd was this was exactly the year I turned, I don't want to say exactly, why did I say exactly? I don't know. This was the year I turned 40. And so it read like a midlife crisis.
Yep.
And one I wasn't serious about. So I had to do a little bit of convincing for people. Like, this is not, this isn't me buying the cherry red sports car the year I turned 40. Like, this is a decision I think is a risky one, but not an insane one. And I took it and we moved to LA.
So to summarize, previously on Brian's life. So we're 20 so years into a faculty, tenure-esque faculty role in theoretical physics with a wife and a newborn in London.
Yes.
And then on April Fool's Day.
This is my third year of being a faculty member.
Third year of being a faculty member, right. And then on April Fool's Day, in the year of your 40th birthday, you moved to LA to basically see where this rock star life takes you, with Ninja Sex Party blowing up. And you have a job doing social media. And it's the
Game Grumps is the
Game
channel.
Grumps. There it is. Yes. Is that also taking off? And so it's like those three things basically.
Yeah. So Game Grumps is like hugely popular. I'm kind of an ancillary part of it. I'm running the social, but I'm not really doing much else. Eventually I would do some on-camera stuff with them, but that came months later. But yeah, Game Grumps is getting real popular. The band's getting real popular. Everything's kind of spinning up. And so the thing that was nice about Queen Mary, my university in the UK, was I can't remember if they offered this or I asked or both, but they said, look, we'll give you a year to change your mind. And all we ask is that if you know before the end of this year, basically the sooner you know you're not coming back, the soonest you know, you tell us. That way it's not disruptive to our grants, right? Because the way theoretical physics works, it's a group grant, and they look bad if my name is on a grant that people kind of know that I'm not going to be there for, you know what I mean?
Right. Meanwhile, you're trending hard on YouTube somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Like
NSO or whoever is like, what? Yeah.
It looks weird, right?
Yeah.
And also they could get another faculty member because they have a slot, and before, you know how these faculty
they plan way in advance.
They plan way in advance, and if you don't take it, someone else is gonna, grab it. So we moved to the US it was the 1st of July, and the band's third album came out a couple weeks later. I think it was the 17th, and it was the first time we'd ever actually like sold albums, and it was the first time I'd ever seen this band make any money in its entire life. And I was like, you know what, that's good enough for me. So I think, I forget exactly when, but very shortly after that, within 3 months of us moving to the States, I wrote him and I was like, okay, I'm not coming back. Because I didn't want to do another international move, which it's a huge pain in the ass. But I also just wanted to I wanted to give them the notice they had asked for. And also for my own peace of mind, you have this kind of exit hatch in the back, and it just kind of hangs there. And you're like, should I take it? Should I take it? Should I take it? Just close it, weld it shut.
Yep.
Then you don't need to worry about it anymore. So, so then I was all in.
I did something similar. I didn't have a plan, but I when I left my academic job, they said, okay, take a year, let us know, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about it for a little bit and did the same, where I was like, actually, no, that's the smart thing to do, because why not? But I knew that I wouldn't commit to something else if I knew that I could just go back.
100%. And you just need to and this is something that was, I don't know. Academics was this weird thing where, tenure or permanent job is so safe, and you live so much of your life up to that point with no safety. It's totally impermanent. And you're always on this edge of am I going to get to the next step? Am I going to get into grad school? Am I going to get out of grad school?
Yeah.
Postdoc. Am I going to get another postdoc? Am I going to get another postdoc? Am I going to get a faculty job? Am I going to get tenure? And then maybe eventually you make it up there. But there's always this unknown exit that you might be.
And there's tons of attrition at every one of those stages. It's not like you're being paranoid. It's watch people not make it to the next.
Involuntary attrition. And so, there's voluntary attrition, of course, but most people, is it most? I don't know what the statistics are. A lot of people who leave don't want to leave.
Right.
If they had the option of being a professor, they would happily be a professor.
Yes.
And so having that exit hatch, I don't know. I kind of, to some extent, I felt like I needed to be back in that early academic mindset where it's no, I really want to do this thing where I have to try and not know what's going to happen if I fail.
Right. And then you have the net of, a faculty job behind you, basically.
Yes. Which would have been a great, and people sometimes ask me about this. They're like, oh, were you miserable? It's like, no, I had a great job. I had great colleagues. Mm-hmm. There was no political weirdness. I liked everyone I worked with. My research group was huge. We had 12 theoretical physicists, which is enormous by US standards. I had I loved living in London, which is expensive, but was a great place to live and have a kid. There was not much negative about that job, except that it was not, UK academic salaries are pretty low, but what can you do?
It all sounds pretty nice otherwise. So
it was pretty great.
So the thing that tipped you, and not to oversimplify, is basically, well, let me ask it this way. If Ninja Sex Party had not taken off, it sounds like you would have stayed.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
For sure.
Right. As opposed to the narrative, which is probably easier to tell, which is, theoretical physicist, miserable, alone in the ivory tower, decides to go all in on music instead. Right.
That's right. No, which was not it at all. It was here's a cool thing. Let me try that.
Yeah. So how long, I can't keep track of time. How long has it been since you were an academic full time? I like to think that we're always academics.
Yeah. It's, what year is it?
I don't know.
It's 6 years.
Okay.
6. So I left July 2015. So it's 6 years and change.
Okay. What I don't know if this is too personal. Do you think it was the right choice?
Oh yeah. Like,
okay.
I mean, that's not to say, the life of an entertainment person is not without stress. You have no idea if people are going to buy your album or whatever, or what's going to come next. But no, I mean, I have what for many people is an absolute dream career, and I would be a consummate a-hole if I did anything but be appreciative of what I have been able to do. Like, it's 100% the right move.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It would be amazing if you're like, I'm finally, someone asked, I'm miserable and I just need a physics job.
That's not to say that sometimes I don't, wistfully look back at physics stuff and go, oh, that'd be fun. But the other thing is, preprints are still free, and I can look at the archive and follow seminars. It's very, very easy to kind of keep up with stuff, at least in a little bit. And I have so many friends that I stay in touch with and see kind of what's going on. I'm not like, if you asked me to do research right now, I'd be kind of hosed, but I have a vague idea of what's happening.
I see definitely more pianos behind you than research related paraphernalia. I guess you're not an experimentalist, so I don't know what that would be. A pencil and a paper, I guess. Yeah, there it is. There's your research, your lab equipment.
Yep.
So the last 6 years, I obviously, a life in the arts every day is wildly different, or I assume that's the case for you. I think that's the case for many artists I know. What have you been up to? What's going on in Ninja Brian's artist life?
To answer your question, what are we doing? We're in a cycle where we put out an album a year. In a normal, quote unquote, year, we'd be touring. That didn't happen last year. It's not going to happen this year. It'll probably happen next year. But day to day I'm doing stuff for the band. I'm writing music. I have a kids band that I'm, writing stuff for. I'm about to start recording a smooth jazz album. Every day it's totally different. The podcast now takes up a lot of time. So we do that a lot, but we're lucky that we are, we're able to put out for Ninja Sex Party, basically one album every year. We do originals, we do covers, and there's always something going on in the back burner. And we're lucky that now we work a year ahead of schedule for stuff. We record stuff essentially a year before it comes out.
I could use that kind of discipline in my life. I record things. This is going out immediately. I mean, I'll edit it slightly. I wish it was faster. Yeah.
That's just kind of the way, we're at a point now where we have a producer, and there's a lot of people doing stuff in various capacities, designing merch and getting the albums printed. And it's everything just takes a while, and we want it to be a good quality thing, so we don't rush it. And we're also an indie act, so we can't afford to pay the kind of money that would get something done quickly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
where can folks find out about, where to see you when you're on tour, get merch, albums, etc.?
Any of the Ninja Sex Party feeds. We're at Ninja Sex Party on all the socials, or ninjasexparty.com has all the stuff. There's nothing about touring on there right now, but
all right.
We did just put out some fun merch, for example.
Very cool.
It's
all right.
Spotify, if they want to listen to music, we're on Spotify, YouTube. Probably the way to do it is check out music videos on YouTube.
Okay.
They're the most
I'll put some links to some of my favorites on.
Great. Thanks.
I should be wearing some merch.
Oh, no.
Big miss on my part.
It's all right.
Do you find yourself wishing you had gone straight to music? I mean, I'm thinking about how you were going to go to Duke and be a composer, academic composer. I mean, you're almost that now. Obviously, it takes a very different form, but there's a lot of flavors of your, imagined life when you were just starting out at grad school, it sounds like, from what you have now.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, through the people that I met and the bands I played in and the comedy stuff that I did, I was able to absorb so many other influences that I probably wouldn't have gotten just as an academic, academic musician from
right.
So there's no sense in which I wish I had just stayed in music throughout. Modern composers are generally pretty versatile musicians, but I probably wouldn't have played in a jam band. And well, I don't know. Durham's got a jam scene, I'm sure. But it would just be different influences. But I feel like it wouldn't be quite as diverse. And comedy is the other big one. Like, I don't think I would have. I owe comedy. That's where I met my wife. If I didn't meet my wife, we wouldn't have our daughter. Like I'd say the two greatest people in my life are a direct result of me doing comedy. So I definitely don't want to change that.
Right. Well, I'm thinking back to where we started this, and I think, as you foreshadowed, the real hero of this story is that woman you moved to San Diego for/with that kicked all this off. Or you'd be in maybe a local jam band in Durham, single, childless. I don't know.
Who the hell knows, right? It is funny because it was absolutely one of those things where that was a devastating breakup for me. I mean, really devastating. Like, to be fully honest, like, it took years to like get over it.
Oof.
And I'm
sorry to make light of it. In that
no. You should, because you're totally right. And it was, it was a breakup when I was 23. Every breakup when you're 23 is devastating. Like, come on, that's
right.
what.
Especially given the circumstances of the move and changing your life around. And I mean, it sounds horrible.
No, it was awful, and it was like I literally don't think I went on a date with someone for at least 2 years after we broke up. I was just like, in a very real sense, just like, I don't want to say depressed, because I don't know if I clinically was depressed, but I was super bummed out at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
But it also turns out that being in grad school for the first couple of years, you don't have a lot of time for that. And so I was able to just kind of focus on the work, which I understand not everybody is able to do, but I was lucky that I could at least the work helped me rather than, upset me more.
I have felt the same way at times. Sometimes it's so much that you can't focus, but I do remember distinctly a time more recently in academia where I got out some work that I was working on, and I was like, well, at least complexity won't disappoint you. Like, I actually had that dramatic soap opera thought. Okay. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but are you in touch with this person? Do they know that they had this impact on your life?
I'm not directly in touch with her, but we have, we went to college together. We have lots of mutual friends. I mean, I know like what she's doing, and I'm sure she knows what I'm doing. Last time I saw her was probably shortly before I left San Diego. And I do remember her saying, basically saying, I'm sorry I treated you badly, which was very kind of her to say. Also, I feel like I kind of deserved it, but that's a separate matter. But beyond that, I've not been directly in touch with her. And honestly, there's no, whatever. There's no particular reason to. We will probably run into each other at a college reunion at some point, and she's married with kids. And I wish her, people will say this in an empty way, and I'm not doing that now. When honestly, I wish her nothing but the best. She's a cool person, and it didn't work out for us. But as you said, had I not gone through that, I would not be on my present. I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And how can I complain about being here?
This is where I am resisting the urge to be like, she's in the Zoom room. Come on, or whatever. I didn't resist it. I did it. Yeah. All right. So I've kept you forever. I have one more meta question, and then we're going to enter the final segment, if you have time.
Yes.
Called Existential Corner.
Great.
And you can answer or decline any of the questions in Existential Corner. And one day, maybe I'll have a sound effect. Maybe I'll enlist you to make a sound effect.
Yeah, if you need one, happy to do it. Yep.
You are surrounded by many different things that make sound.
Only some of them work.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So my big question is, I get this a lot, and I do not have a good answer. Do you find that, so in addition to the kind of the happenstance of life and the twists and turns of the people you met as a function of academia versus music versus comedy and all of that, do you think that your training in physics has helped you as a musician and a comedian and an entertainer, and vice versa? Do you think that you were a better and are a physicist because you also, from the beginning, you double majored in music and have been interested in music? Like, how do these two relate, or is the beauty that they don't?
No, they definitely do in kind of an oblique way. So I'll answer each question separately.
Okay.
Physics and science made me better at comedy because it made me better at getting negative feedback and notes. And I can have someone say, I don't like that. I don't think that's funny. And then I can go, all right, okay, fair enough. I'll try again. Try something else. Physics, science, so much just about idea generation that you realize ideas are actually pretty cheap. And you might have some really good ones every once in a while, but generally there's just more ideas waiting. And when you get negative feedback, as long as it's not done in a cruel way, that's just someone saying, hey, this isn't really working for me. And then science, I think, really teaches you to take the note and move on. And of course, in science, it's someone saying, you are wrong, and here is why you are wrong. So it's much more devastating in science.
Yeah.
Because someone's like, here's why you're stupid, and I'll prove it. In comedy or arts, it's someone's just like, yeah, it doesn't really work for me. So in science, you can't not take the note. Like if someone says you're wrong, you have to rebut that or agree with them.
Right.
In the arts, you can just be like, well, I think I'm right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no agreeing to disagree in science. I mean, people find a way, but there's not really. It's not the idea.
Yeah, exactly. People definitely do find a way. I would say that the arts and comedy made me a better scientist because I don't think it improved the quality of my science, but it definitely improved the quality of my talks. Because when you are a dynamic, interesting speaker, that will get you far. So one thing we didn't talk about much is I did a bunch of storytelling in New York and started the Story Collider with Ben Lilly. And every good science talk tells a story. And if you're good at storytelling, you can give a good talk. And the secret of all good science talks is the details don't matter. No one cares about the details. They don't want to hear them. If they do, they'll talk to you afterwards. All you need to do in a science talk is give in broad brushstrokes the problem you're trying to solve and how you solved it, and turn it into a narrative. And so learning how to do that and give it a little bit of to use a technical term, pizzazz.
It must be some theoretical physics thing.
Yeah, it's a part
fusion,
of it.
field string. Yeah, well, got it.
That goes a really long way. So I think because I can give a good talk, and this is something that goes all the way back to the math faculty at Williams who trained us to give good Blackboard talks. I mean, I was always told, you do not look at your notes during a lecture, ever.
Right.
You prepare them meticulously ahead of time, and then you have them up here. And if you need to refer to them once a little bit to check the minus sign or something, that's fine. But that lecture needs to be in here before you put it out there. And I really absorbed that for lectures when I was lecturing and research talks. And so learning how to put a little bit of showmanship and narrative into a science talk, I think got me a reputation as being a good speaker, which got me invited to give talks, which got me invited to give more talks. And eventually one of those talks was a faculty talk where I got a job. Now, obviously there's scientific content that's important in there too, but
necessary, not sufficient, or neither necessary nor sufficient, but whatever. Yes.
Totally. And, faculty members, like anyone else, are human beings, and they want to work with someone they can communicate with. And if they get a talk by someone they feel is just not getting the idea across, that is a harder sell as a colleague. So I think having that skill absolutely helped. I don't think it helped my science. I don't think it helped my research, but I think it helped my science career.
Yep. No, I think that makes sense. And I'm so glad you brought up Story Collider, because I was just thinking about that whole third piece of, I don't know if science communication is a field that you like, the term you like, but you're doing a lot of awesome things to really join these two worlds, right? And take your strengths from both.
Yeah, I like science communication as a term. I think it's
okay.
Fine. Yeah.
I had never heard of it, and I was like, what is this SciComm everyone's talking about? But apparently it's a whole thing. So
it's a whole thing. Yeah.
It's a whole thing. It's great. All right. So, and that's how we know each other, is through the Nexus conference, the Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism. So that's for people listening who are like, but how do these two meet? That's how. That word is not coming. All right. Are you ready for Existential Corner?
I hope so.
Okay. The idea, let's see if it's possible, I don't know if it is you get a one sentence answer Sort of like lightning round, but they're
Great.
existential questions.
I love it. Yes.
Okay. 1, what is your biggest fear?
Climate change.
2, there's like 8 of these. What is your secret dream for your life? A dream for your life that you don't normally tell people?
Oh. I have to think about this. A secret dream.
Maybe you don't have secret dreams.
Oh, I definitely do. What's a good one? I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you one I was thinking of recently. I want to be a skateboarder.
Cool.
I'm way too old for it, but I want to be a skateboarder.
Not too old. I like it. All right. I'm breaking my own rules because I have follow-up questions, but we got to keep the lightning round going. Okay. Number 3, biggest regret.
Oh, it's a classic. It's not asking my parents more about themselves before they died. You know, my parents died when I was in my late 20s, and I wish I had, taken down more family history. That's the big one.
That's a good answer. I'm not going to hear to rate answers, but that's a really powerful one. Thing you are most proud of.
My daughter.
Yeah, there was only one right answer to that one. Yeah. Okay. This one is stealing shamelessly from Seinfeld. Do you yearn? If so, what for?
Oh, yes, and legitimacy.
Wow. Okay. What is the meaning of life?
Be nice to people and do interesting things.
Okay. And last one, what is the best advice you've ever received or given if you think yours is the best?
It's probably for my father when I was picking an instrument when I was 10. He said, don't play the violin, play the saxophone instead.
That does seem like it was powerful in your life.
Changed everything.
Yeah. He's the hero of the story. Sorry, econ grad student. Yeah. Wow. Well, that concludes Existential Corner. Thank you for playing. I feel like we've only just started the conversation. If you are interested, I would love to have you on and talk more about your life, navigating these multiple worlds and how they fit together for you. Because I have other questions about, like, do you think society is set up for people like you who have lots of different interests? I mean, you've, I think, been very fortunate. You're also very skilled, but you could imagine things not going quite so well.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's very hard to be a dilettante.
Yeah,
but I'm lucky that I've been able to be.
Well,
but I do not think society is set up for dilettantery.
It's not. I came across the word polymath the other day for the first time in forever. And I was like, oh yeah, we used to say that. I don't know. I mean, we didn't.
Polymath feels very self-congratulatory. I would describe someone else as a polymath, but I would not describe myself as a polymath because there's an implication of skill in that term.
That's right.
I dilettante is fine. I'll describe myself as that because it doesn't feel, that's just doing stuff and it doesn't mean you're good at it.
That's right.
If I describe myself as a polymath, it's like, well, look at all this shit I can do.
Yeah, well, step really aside. Yeah. Right. Polymath in the house. All right. Dilettante. I'm going to make a new list of all these words because it's like Renaissance person, multi-hyphenate. Like, there's a lot of words out there.
Oh, multi-hyphenate. That's a hard one. Then it feels like you're in entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. That one always bugs me because it makes me feel like it's like, oh, so you're like 30% this and 30% that. And it takes away the possibility that the whole is greater than the sum of. Anyway.
I like triple threat. That's my favorite because those three things could be three anythings. In my case, it's music, comedy, and theoretical physics. But, you have to say what they are.
Yeah. I thought triple threat was specifically only music, singing, acting, and dancing. Maybe that's
it used to be, but I'm reclaiming it.
I like it.
I'm reclaiming it from the theater kids who are in charge of everything.
That's right. Yeah, that's who's running the world here. All right. So triple threat, Brian Wecht, thank you for joining the show. We can find out all about Ninja Sex Party at Ninja Sex Party, ninjasexparty.com. Where can folks find you if you want them to? Yeah, please do. At Wecht, BWECHT on everything, although not on TikTok. Sorry, it's Brian Wecht on TikTok, but I also don't use TikTok much. So we'll have a third episode where we talk about TikTok because I have things. And the podcast is Late Night, and I imagine people can find it wherever they get podcasts. Leighton, the name Leighton, night. It's on
Yeah, every podcast thing and YouTube.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I've kept you until the end of time. Thank you to everyone who listened. And maybe I'll even do another one. I feel like we learned everything from Brian. So what if I was like, and that's the show, it's done. I'll probably have on a few more guests. And then Brian, I'll have you come back and we'll solve this whole business of setting up the world for dilettantes.
That sounds great.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Bye.